to
Okay, thank you so much, Jean, and thank you for inviting me. Thanks everyone for participating in this session. I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody. Before I get started, very quickly, I just want to explain. I know a lot of you probably have some understanding or a lot of understanding of my organization, the Community Health Law Project, but just want to briefly talk about it. We're a nonprofit that started in 1976. We provide usually free legal representation to low-income individuals with disabilities in a wide variety of civil areas. We have 5 direct service offices and 4 satellite offices throughout the state. The cases we handle include, but not limited to, Medicaid, Medicare cases, Social Security disability, SSI, home care issues involving private duty nursing, personal care assistance, landlord-tenant issues, all kinds of public entitlements, including food stamps, emergency housing assistance, and cash welfare benefits. Also, housing discrimination, special education law, and guardianships. So, definitely feel free to reach out to us, have your clients or yourself, if you have may be eligible, reach out to us if you have questions or may have a case in any of those areas. Okay, getting to the subject of today. This is a topic, as Jean said, is very topical, especially because of the fact that we're going through what's called the Medicaid unwinding. We'll get into great detail about what that is, but basically it is a situation where post-pandemic, where people were being where there was a pause on people being terminated from all kinds of Medicaid benefits during the pandemic. That has ended, and we're in the process of everyone in New Jersey on Medicaid, really throughout the country, being reevaluated to determine if they are eligible after approximately at least a 2-year hiatus or gap in people not being terminated, even if they might have clearly been not eligible for benefits anymore. So just quickly before we get into the slides, what I'm first going to do, since this is a fairly complicated topic in general, Medicaid is notoriously complicated. And so what I'm going to first do is give a brief overview of what Medicaid is, and especially in New Jersey. Then we're going to talk about the Medicaid unwinding or redetermination process. Then we're going to go into briefly going over the Medicaid eligibility requirements for most, if not all, types of Medicaid in New Jersey. And because you really need to know that, you need to know, if you're getting terminated or, you're losing your Medicaid to help you figure out if it's correct or not, you need to know what the requirements are in general. And unfortunately, when they do issue you a termination notice, the notice is often not real detailed, does not go explain well why they think you're not eligible. And then we're going to finally go over how to appeal adverse Medicaid decisions. So if you do get a termination or denial, how to appeal that decision. And again, a lot of this will also apply as well to when the unwinding is over, and we're kind of in the middle of it now. It will apply to future cases where people are either denied or terminated Medicaid benefits. Okay, so going into the first topic, which is an overview of the Medicaid program. So, and again, I know a lot of you may know a lot about this, but I'm sure at least some of you really don't. So Medicaid is a joint federal and state program that, together with the Children's Health Insurance Program, or CHIP, provides health coverage to over 70 million individuals nationwide, including children, pregnant women, parents, seniors, and individuals with disabilities. There's a lot of different acronyms and names here that can confuse a lot of people, so it's worth going over this, the names and the acronyms. New Jersey's Medicaid program is known as New Jersey Family Care, and also includes New Jersey's federally mandated, Children's Health Insurance Program. So when you hear New Jersey Family Care, that it really means Medicaid as well. So don't get thrown by that. New Jersey Family Care and Medicaid are basically the same thing. Okay, so in New Jersey, the New Jersey Division of Medical Assistance and Health Services, or more commonly known as DMOS, is the agency within the New Jersey Department of Human Services that is responsible for implementing, running the New Jersey Medicaid program. Under DMOS's supervision, county welfare agencies, or CWAs, are responsible for most of the day-to-day operations, including reviewing applications, making annual redeterminations, which again had been suspended during the pandemic, and recommending approval, denial, continuation, or termination of benefits. So even though it's a state agency with a headquarters in Trenton, they delegate to the county boards of social services the day-to-day operations of taking applications, making decisions, doing redeterminations. Okay, then it's worth it to go over a key part of the Medicaid program in New Jersey and across the country that really kind of was a game changer back in 2010 as far as creating a very important and very large new eligibility population for Medicaid. And that came through the Affordable Care Act of 2010, or the ACA, also informally known as Obamacare. It created the opportunity for states to expand Medicaid to cover nearly all low-income individuals under the age of 65, regardless of their medical condition. Under the ACA, eligibility for children was extended to at least 138% of the federal poverty level, and states were given the option to extend adult eligibility to 138% of the federal poverty level. As of today, 39 states, including New Jersey, have chosen this option. So that, that we'll go over that in a few minutes, but that is an important point to know. It really changed the game to make, a very large number of additional people eligible for benefits, especially in states that chose the option to include adults in it. All right, the ACA established, or Affordable Care Act established, a new method for determining income eligibility for Medicaid, which is based on something called modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI, and we'll go over that in more detail, later. But MAGI, it's important because the MAGI method of determining income is much different and much simpler than the method for determining income for the more traditional non-ACA Medicaid categories that we will also go over. So New Jersey Family Care / Medicaid is New Jersey's public health care coverage program. In practice, there are two main program categories: one that covers the aged, blind, and disabled, or ABD population, and one that covers non-aged, blind, or disabled individuals, which is primarily the ACA, or informally Obamacare Medicaid. So you have New Jersey Family Care, which covers children under age 19, adults, and pregnant women. And then New Jersey Family Care age, blind, and disabled programs, which cover people age 65 or older, and people determined to be blind or disabled by the Social Security Administration or by the state of New Jersey. In order to be eligible, there's some very basic requirements to be eligible for virtually any New Jersey Family Care / Medicaid programs. First of all, you have to live in New Jersey, be a resident of New Jersey. You also have to be a U.S. citizen or meet certain immigration requirements. Generally, you're okay if you have LPR status, which means legal permanent resident status, for at least 5 years, or if you are a refugee or asylee. But also, if you are if you don't fall in one of those categories, but you are a lawfully present immigrant, either at age 19 or 20 with very low income, $509 per month or less for a single person, that limited but important category, you can be eligible even if you have not been here for 5 years or not a refugee or asylee. That's a relatively new addition to eligibility. You also have to meet income guidelines, which we'll go over in more detail because they're different for each of the different types of Medicaid. And then for the Medicaid, for the Medicaid programs that require you to be aged, blind, or disabled, you have to meet also resource guidelines in addition to being elderly or disabled. Now, it's also important to know quickly what happens once you're determined to be eligible for Medicaid, when the coverage takes effect. So basically, the coverage takes effect either on the date of application or the first day of the month of application. And then, very importantly, benefits may be covered retroactively for up to 3 months prior to the month of application, if the individual would have been eligible during that period had he or she applied up to 3 months prior to the actual application. Coverage generally stops at the end of the month in which a person no longer meets the eligibility requirements. Okay, so then I'm not going to go over all of this, but New Jersey Family Care Medicaid covers virtually all medical services that are deemed to be medically necessary. And so there's a long list there that doesn't cover 100%, but it's the vast majority of what is covered. You can see it's a very broad range of coverage. And with Medicaid, there are no co-pays, deductibles, or premiums. So that also is very important. Okay. And also, New Jersey Family Care Medicaid services are provided through Medicaid Managed Care Organizations, or MCOs. They're also often called HMOs, or Health Maintenance Organizations. It's the same thing. Now, these MCOs are supposed to be, in theory at least, closely monitored by DMOS, or the state which is basically the state Medicaid agency. They have a contract, or a state contract, that each of these MCOs has to abide by in providing Medicaid plans for everyone in the state that's eligible for Medicaid. Right now, there are 5 health plans that have signed the contract, the Medicaid contract with DMOS, and are providing managed care, Medicaid managed care services in New Jersey. And they're there. You can choose, once you're found eligible for Medicaid, in virtually all cases, you have to choose one of these 5 MCOs or HMOs, to provide service. They all have to provide the same services. But again, the phone numbers are there, and you have to pick one of them. Okay. All right. So that's kind of an overview of what Medicaid is, both nationally, and some of the specifics of how it is run and who provides the Medicaid coverage in New Jersey. Now I want to get into what's going on right now with the Medicaid program nationwide, and including New Jersey, and that's something called Medicaid unwinding. So starting in March of 2020, New Jersey Family Care / Medicaid followed special rules due to the federal COVID-19 public health emergency. And the most important of these rules for our purposes today is that they required everyone on Medicaid at that time, this is nationwide, to keep their coverage, even if it was clear that they no longer qualified for reasons such as being over income or having excess resources. This was known as the continuous Medicaid enrollment rule. Again, that started to be in effect in March of 2020 due to the national COVID public health emergency. So unfortunately for our purposes, the continuous Medicaid enrollment requirement ended in April of 2023. So roughly 9 months ago. So starting in April of so that meant that people could, starting in April of 2023, states could start, reevaluating everyone who was on Medicaid in their state, and they could start, if they felt that they were no longer eligible or become not eligible during the basically hiatus and redeterminations during the public health emergency, they could start terminating those individuals or those members. So starting in April of 2023 and until at least March of this year, but it probably will go on a little bit beyond March because of some delays or issues that have come up, within New Jersey as far as getting this done timely. But starting in April of 2023, 1/12 of the people on Medicaid in the state were supposed to be up for redetermination of eligibility, and were either sent, were supposed to have been sent a renewal application, or were found to be automatically re-eligible. If they were automatically re-eligible, that meant that they did not, that the state Medicaid people and the county Board of Social Services had enough information, undisputed information, that made it clear that they were eligible and did not need to submit a renewal or redetermination application. So that's roughly, I think, roughly 15 to 20% of the Medicaid population have been found so far to be automatically re-eligible and not have to go through this process, although they still get notification of what's going on, and that they were found to be re-eligible. But for the remaining 80 to 85%, they were sent, or were supposed to be sent, a redetermination application in the mail. This process has been called unwinding from the continuous Medicaid requirement of continuous eligibility. It's also referred to as Medicaid redetermination, Medicaid renewal, or Medicaid restart. So again, all of those things are the same, mean the same thing. Just keep that in mind. So Medicaid unwinding does not apply to people who receive Medicaid and SSI. So if you're on SSI, you're getting your Medicaid by virtue of getting SSI, supplemental security income benefits, then this does not apply to you at all, and you don't have to worry about it. But it does apply, Medicaid unwinding does apply to everyone else on Medicaid who does not receive SSI. Okay, so what can you do right now if you have not been renewed yet? So again, we're kind of in the middle, at least a little bit past the halfway point, because of some delays in the way it's worked in New Jersey. We're just a little bit beyond the halfway point of the unwinding process. So if you've not, if you're on Medicaid and you're not on SSI, and you've not been redetermined yet, you're still getting your Medicaid, but you've not been redetermined yet, then there's a few things that you should do and can do to prepare for your redetermination. One is to be sure Medicaid has your current mailing address. And if there's any uncertainty of that, or even if you think you're probably sure, it's a good idea to call the number there, 1-800-701-0710, to confirm that Medicaid has your current address. That's especially important, critically important, if you've moved recently. Even if you know that your MCO, Verizon, United, etc., has your correct address because you're getting mail from them, that doesn't automatically mean that Medicaid, the state Medicaid department, has your correct address. So it's always definitely a good idea to call that number to make sure that Medicaid has your current address. If you're in the situation where you're on Medicaid, you're not on SSI, and you have not been reevaluated for eligibility yet. Now, also, if a resource limit is applicable to your type of Medicaid, which is for most types of Medicaid that are not the ACA or expanded Medicaid, most of them have resource limits. Most of them have resource limits either 2,000 or 4,000 for a single individual. So you want to make sure that you're not exceeding that limit, that resource limit, at the end of the month. So you want to, we'll talk about that in a second, as far as how to do that. But you also, of course, want to respond promptly to any mail that you receive from New Jersey Family Care, Medicaid, the DMAS, Division of Medical Assistance or Health Services, or your County Board of Social Services. So if you or your family member or consumer client receive, any mail with any of those from any of those organizations, or anything saying any of those things, it's really more critical than ever to open it immediately and deal with it, immediately. Get help if you don't understand it, or if there's something that is required that you don't understand, get help immediately. Don't wait. Okay, so getting down to kind of the more specifics about how this unwinding or renewal redetermination process, is supposed to be happening. At the beginning of each month, Medicaid MCOs, so United, Horizon, AmeriGroup, et cetera, are supposed to send postcards to people who will receive a Medicaid renewal application that month. And the postcard will say, the language there, your MJ Family Care Renewal Mail is coming very soon. Please open it and follow instructions right away if you want to keep your healthcare coverage. So it's obviously kind of a heads up that this is to be expected. Look for it in the mail. If it's comes around the end of the month and you haven't gotten the renewal application, that's a problem. You should definitely call that 800 number, I showed in the last slide, to see what's going on, to see if they can help you with that, or call your MCO if you get a hold of them to say that you got the postcard but you didn't get the renewal application. But that again is an important heads up, that postcard. At the end of the month, your MCO will call you or email you or text you to confirm that you received and responded to the renewal application. So again, another kind of safeguard to try to make sure that people don't fall through the cracks, and that everyone who's supposed to get an application got it and responded to it. Now, county Medicaid offices are required to extend the deadline printed on the renewal application for a reasonable amount of time upon request of the person who received the letter. And there's a number when you get the renewal application. It will say in the cover letter, it will say when it has to be returned by. And but again, due to mailing issues, possibly, or other issues, you may not get it until it's very close to the deadline. But if you do, don't worry, at least in theory, don't worry about it, but call the county Medicaid office. The number will be, in the letter, and tell them that you need more time. And they're supposed to be very liberal, very quote unquote reasonable about giving you more time. And that does seem to be happening. We've seen that in practice, but it's important to ask for that extra time. Okay. Now, getting back to, the resource limit. So if you have a resource limit, and again, that's for virtually everybody that is getting any type of Medicaid involving the need to be aged, blind, or disabled. If you have a resource limit, make sure to spend it down to below the limit during the month that you receive your renewal application. So by the end of the month. And so money deposited into a bank account does not count as a resource until the following month. That's important to know. So that means that these funds can and should be used to spend down each month before the end of the month. And, because they go by what's in the bank account at the end of the month, not the beginning of the month or during the month. And you can use, these funds to spend down for virtually anything. Obviously necessities, your own necessities, but it can be used even for vacations or really anything, as long as what you use them for doesn't create a new resource. So you can't buy like a piece of land or buy stocks or bonds with it, because that will create another resource. But you can spend it on virtually anything else that does not create a resource, to spend it down to below, in most cases, the $2,000 or $4,000 resource limit. Then another thing that's important to know is that if Medicaid determines that you are no longer eligible for the type of Medicaid that you have, and we'll go over those types in a minute, they must review, before they deny you or terminate you, they must review you for possible eligibility in all other Medicaid categories that there's a chance that you might be eligible for. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later, but that's really important to know. And especially because pre-pandemic, that requirement was there, and it was routinely ignored by the people that made these decisions. There's been some stress and emphasis with the unwinding process to make it better, but we still see a lot of cases where people are being terminated, even recently, but are clearly or should be found eligible for another type of Medicaid and are not being, transferred without being first terminated and having to reapply for the other type of Medicaid. That should not be happening. It should be seamless. If you're eligible for another type of Medicaid, there should be no gap in coverage. Okay, so with the what you get if you get a renewal application, if you're not automatically found re-eligible, you fill out the application, but you also have to attach different categories of documents to verify eligibility. And so all beneficiaries must include proof of income documents, which obviously if it's work income, it would be pay stubs or W-4s, or can be tax returns. You also, if it's Social Security benefits, you would want to include a letter, an award letter, some type of award letter from Social Security indicating your current benefit amount. You're also going to need your most recent statement for all bank accounts, including accounts closed since your last redetermination, which would have been probably 2 to 3 years prior. If applicable, there's other things that they would want documentation for, including changes in living expenses, documentation concerning all trusts or special needs trusts, bank statements, for each of those trust accounts since your last redetermination, current cash surrender value of life insurance policies, change in Medicare or other health insurance premiums. Okay. All right. Now, so that's kind of an overview of what's going on with the unwinding or redetermination process. But in order to determine whether or not a decision, especially a decision to terminate your Medicaid, is correct or not, and to determine whether or not there might be some other, even if it is correct, but there might be some other type of Medicaid that that you feel you are eligible for, or should be eligible for, you need to know at least the basic eligibility requirements for the other types of Medicaid, or really all the types of Medicaid in New Jersey. Unfortunately, that's not an easy subject. It's very complicated. And there are, as you can see, many other types of Medicaid that are available in New Jersey. And, we're going to go over, everyone on this list, at least very quickly. Okay, so the first one is SSI related and Medicaid only. So this is for people that are either on SSI or applying for SSI, or they're people that are disabled and have very low income, but for a variety of reasons, don't want to have, don't want to get SSI disability benefits. So to be eligible for this, you have to be either over 60, equal to or more than 65 years of age, or you have to be blind or disabled at any age. And the determination, is made for these people. The determination is usually made by Social Security Administration through an SSI application. Now the income is determined through modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI methods, which we'll go over in a few minutes. For this year, for 2023, I should have updated this, but the income limit for 2023 was $945.25 for an individual, almost $1,400 for a couple. The resource limit is $2,000 for an individual, $3,000 for a couple. The home that you're living in and one car do not count toward resources. Okay. All right, then for each of these types, I'm going to give you a slide on how to apply them, different ways to apply. I'm not going to read over that, but this is important if you have someone, if you think you might be eligible and need to apply, this can hopefully help show you how to do that, or the different ways to do it. Okay, so then getting to the next type of Medicaid in New Jersey, we're going to talk about, aged, blind, and disabled Medicaid, or ABD. In New Jersey, sometimes it's called New Jersey Care to make things even more complicated, but when people talk about New Jersey Care, they're really talking again about aged, blind, and disabled, or ABD Medicaid. So eligibility for this is that you have to be, again, either age 65 or older, blind or disabled at any age. In this case, since it's not people usually who are involved with getting or applying for SSI, you have to be determined by the DMOS, again, that's the state Medicaid department, their medical review team, which includes a medical consultant and a medical social work consultant. They determine whether you are disabled or blind, in order to be eligible for this. And the standard they use to determine that is the same standard that this SSA, or the Social Security Administration, uses to define permanent disability or blindness. Permanent disability, according to SSA, is someone who is unable to engage in what they call substantial gainful activity, which is not quite but close to full-time work, at least significant work, for at least 12 months, or that they have a medically terminal impairment or disability that has been diagnosed and is expected to lead, to terminal illness expected to lead to death. That is the basic definition for permanent disability for both this type of Medicaid and or Social Security Administration for their disability programs. Now, DMAS will not make a disability determination if the Social Security Administration determined within the 12 months prior to application for this type of Medicaid that the individual was not disabled. But if that's not the case, then they will make their own determination. They make their determinations much, much, much faster than Social Security does, and are generally more lenient than I think Social Security is in making their determinations of disability. Now, there's also income limits, and again, they use in determining income, they use the non-MAGI modified adjusted gross income methods. The limits are 1215 for an individual. It's basically 100% of the federal poverty level adjusted for family size. So 1215 for an individual for 2023, a little bit higher for this year. 1644 for a couple, and so on. Now, one thing that can be important in this case is that in these cases with this type of benefit is prior to 2021, what would happen is, it's kind of technical, but no matter how big a person's family was, they could be in a family of 4, 5, 6 people. In order to determine eligibility, the state would say that no matter how big the family size is, we first have to look at the individual who's applying, their individual income, and if that income is more than $12.15 a month for 2023. Then we're going to deny, they're not eligible regardless of how many people are in the family. And, it's kind of technical, but there was a case that went before up to the New Jersey Supreme Court in 2021 that said that was not legal. That was against the law, basically against the statute and regulations that applied here, the federal statute and regulations. So now you have to look at the family size. So no matter what the individual's income, even if it's over 1215, if their family income is below the maximum for the family size, then they are financially eligible for this type of Medicaid. The resource limit for this type of Medicaid is higher. It's $4,000 for an individual, $6,000 for couples. Once again, as within the SSI-related Medicaid, that home and one car do not count as resources. All right, so then, and this slide goes over how you determine non-MAGI income for the programs where income is counted through the non-modified adjusted gross income, and so any income which is not specifically excluded has to be counted. I go over here all the different types of income that can be or have to be counted. There are others, but those are the primary examples. Income also includes in-kind support and maintenance, which is the provision of food, clothing, and shelter at no cost or reduced value. There's a presumed amount of in-kind support. If it's really less than that, you can demonstrate that it's less, but it's $324, about $325 for an individual, $477 for a couple. So that, if you're living in someone's household for free or low cost, living with someone and sharing meals and everything, not clearly a separate household in that house, then those in-kind support presumptions will apply and be added into your income, your other income. Then there are income exclusions, which we won't go over in detail, but include loans that are actually repayable, proceeds from the sale of a resource. They're treated as a resource, not income. 1/3 of child support from an absent parent is excluded. The first 20 per month of income is excluded. In addition to that, the first 65 per month of earned income, plus 1/2 of the remainder of earned income is also excluded from income and making eligibility determinations. All right, so then so more specifically, the determination of income eligibility is based on all earned and unearned income which has or will be received during the month for which application is made. If earned income is irregular, as it often is, especially for lower income people, the determination shall be based on the average of the amounts received for any 4 weeks within the 10-week period, which includes the 5 weeks immediately before and after the date of application. And they're allowed to and they're supposed to, if the income is very irregular and really will have an effect on eligibility, they're supposed to do redeterminations as frequently as necessary to determine eligibility in that situation. All right. Now, resources for these types of Medicaid are also come into play, and there's a definition of resources that I've set forth here. It can be, liquid and or non-liquid resources. It's very broad. Everything that you can imagine that might be a resource is a resource, basically, except if it's specifically excluded from resources. So again, here there's a fairly long list of excludable resources. A house occupied by the applicant as a principal residence, 1 car, personal effects and household goods up to a value of $2,000, cash surrender value of life insurance policies up to $1,500. Value of resources that are not accessible to the applicant through no fault of their own are also excluded. So that would include irrevocable trust funds, property in probate, real property that cannot be sold due to the refusal of a co-owner to liquidate. Those things are not supposed to be counted, but in some cases, it's not that uncommon that the people who make the decisions will sometimes make mistakes with those things and try to count those assets. So that's something to really look out for. Resources accumulated in connection with a plan to achieve self-support or past are also not counted, and prepaid burial plans up to a value of $1,500 are not counted. Again, that's where and how you can apply for this type of Medicaid. All right, now we're getting into a different type of Medicaid. This is the ACA expansion or Obamacare Medicaid that went into effect in 2010. This is to get this, you have to be between the ages of 21 and 64. You are no longer eligible immediately upon turning 65. You're also not eligible for this type of Medicaid. It's also sometimes called Magi Medicaid because that's the way they determine income eligibility. You are no longer eligible for this type of Medicaid once you are eligible to receive Medicare. So that's important to know. You can't get Medicare and this type of Medicaid at the same time. Now, to determine Magi or modified adjusted gross income, it's much more simple than for the other types of Medicaid we just went over, the ABD Medicaid and SSI-related Medicaid. It's basically the Magi is same as line 11 on IRS Form 1040. The income maximum is $1,677 a month for an individual. That's 138% of the federal poverty level for 2023. Now, very important to note for this type of Medicaid, there's no resource limit, no resource limit at all. And as I said, you don't need to be disabled for this. So anyone with this level of income or less, who's 21 to 64, virtually anyone should be eligible for this. Now, to determine, getting to the specifics of how you determine your Magi or modified adjusted gross income. So it's your AGI, adjusted gross income, and your federal tax return, but then you add into that otherwise excluded foreign income, income that would be excluded by IRS, has to be added into this MAGI to determine eligibility for this type of Medicaid benefit. Also, non-taxable Social Security benefits have to be added on to this, to the AGI, or adjusted gross income. Tax-exempt interest is also added on here, but MAGI does not include SSI, so SSI benefits are not counted in determining your modified adjusted gross income. Okay, so again, this is how you apply, or where you can apply for ACA expansion, MAGI, Medicaid, or again, Obamacare. It's all the same thing. Pregnant women, that's a special category with greater coverage. You can, we're not gonna go over that in detail, but that's important to know if you are pregnant or know someone who is pregnant and might have a little higher income that would not otherwise qualify them for the other types of Medicaid we've gone over so far. Okay, then there's a type of Medicaid called Disabled Adult Child, or DAC Medicaid. And this is a special type of Medicaid for people that are at least 18. They have to have been found to be disabled or blind prior to age 22, no matter how old they are right now. They have to have been receiving SSI on basis of disability, and then lost their SSI due to excess income as a result of receipt of Social Security benefits on their parents' record due to their parents' retirement, death, or disability. So this is a special type of Medicaid that is important for people in this situation. The resource limit is $2,000, not including a special needs trust or money in what's called an ABLE account, which applies to some people in that category. Okay, so then there is another type of Medicaid called Managed Long-Term Services and Supports, or MLTSS Medicaid. So this is for people that have very chronic and very serious and ongoing daily medical needs and limits that would qualify them. That basically for people that need a nursing home level of care. You don't have to be in a nursing home to get this benefit, but you need to have a nursing home level of care to qualify to be in a nursing home, but hopefully, living home. So the income limit is higher than for the other types of Medicaid we've already gone over. It's $2,742 for an individual. There is, unfortunately, a resource limit of $2,000 for an individual. There's also a 5-year look-back period to determine income eligibility. No gifting is allowed during that 5-year period. That would make you ineligible. Now, if you are a fairly recent thing that went into effect a few years ago, if you are over the $2,742 for an individual amount, you can still qualify if you establish something called the Qualified Income Trust, or QIT. And we'll go over that in just a second, a little bit more about that. There's a slide with more information about that. But basically, a QIT, if you're over that limit, you can put money that is above the maximum into a trust fund, and then each month the trust fund would pay the amount that you're over, the $2,742. Would pay that to the state to help have you qualify financially for this type of Medicaid. To be clinically eligible, for this type of Medicaid, MLTSS, you have to need hands-on assistance in at least 3 activities of daily living: bathing, dressing, ambulation. There's a few others, obviously. Or if you have a cognitive impairment, you can be eligible, even if you don't need hands-on assistance. But if you need supervision or cueing in at least 3 ADLs, plus you have a recognized diagnosed cognitive disability. Okay, so moving on. The next slide, I'm not going to go over it in detail, but it goes over, what a qualified income trust is, a little bit about how it's set up, and gives a web address for an explanation of this in greater detail, as well as a sample form of a QIT. So it really can be important for people who have these chronic medical needs, need a nursing home level of care, but are a little bit above, or maybe more than a little bit above the $2,742 maximum for an individual. Okay, then the next slide goes over what are the services that MLTSS provides, and many of them are in addition to regular, Medicaid services. They include assisted living facilities, nursing homes, home delivered meals, care management, respite, private duty nursing, personal care assistance. So, very, very important for people who need that nursing home level of care. Okay. And again, you can apply for MLTSS. There's a few other options than the other programs that where how you can apply. That's all on that slide there. Okay. And then there's also another type of Medicaid that is not necessarily full Medicaid. It's called the Medicaid. They're called Medicare savings programs. And so these are people for people that are on Medicare already, but are low income Medicare beneficiaries. And there's something called QMB, or qualified Medicare beneficiary. To qualify for that, you have to be, your income has to be no greater than $12.15 a month if you're a single individual. Again, that's determined using the non-AGI criteria for determining income. So this is a program for people, if you are on QMB, then you're getting you're what's called dual eligible for both Medicare and Medicaid. So what happens is you have Medicare, but then the QMB program would pay for everything that Medicare does not pay for, which includes the 20% doctor visit copay, includes all significant deductibles and copays for hospital stays. It also includes any copays for prescription medication. So if you're on this QMB, it's like regular Medicaid. Everything is paid for, but you also have Medicare, so you can go to anyone who takes either Medicare or Medicaid. Then for people whose incomes are a little bit higher, there are two other programs called Specified Low Income Medicare Beneficiary Program, or SLMB, or SLIMB, as some people call it, or QI, Qualified Individual. For these people, these categories, the basic thing is you don't get full Medicaid. Medicaid doesn't pay for everything that Medicare doesn't pay for, but what they do pay for, which is very significant, and the QMB program also pays for, by the way, each of these last two programs does pay the Medicare Part B premium, which is a lot of money these days. It's getting close to $200 for a lot of people per month. So you can at least, if you are fall into one of these categories, can at least have your Medicare premium paid by the state. And for all of these Medicare savings programs, there is a resource limit of $7,970 a month for 2023. Okay, then getting towards the end of this, as far as the New Jersey types of Medicare, so there's New Jersey workability. This is recent changes to it have made it more accessible, more eligible for people that many people. It allows you to work part-time and still receive Medicaid. The amount of work you need to do is very, very limited. It can be just a few hours a week. It has to be real work, but it doesn't have to be with a corporation or company. It can be for a relative. The eligibility requirements are on here. It's very, very liberal income requirements. And as of April 2023, there are no resource requirements, and no resource limitations for this program. So gone over all of that. Again, this is a really important program for people that may not otherwise qualify. The income limits are much higher. And again, there are no resource limits. Okay. And okay, then here's an explanation of children in Medicaid. The limit for children is a little bit higher. The Obamacare or ACA limit is 147% of FPL. It's at 138%. That's $3,675 for a family of four. And then there are, you can get children's health insurance benefits if you're beyond that 147%. It's not technically Medicaid, but if you're up to 355% of the federal poverty level, you can get insurance through the CHIP program. Again, not Medicaid, but still Medicaid-like insurance, even if you're making close to $9,000 a month for a family of four. Okay. Okay, then so then getting quickly to the Medicaid appeal rights. So if you get it, if the county welfare agency decides to terminate your Medicaid benefits for any reason, they have to mail a written notice to you prior to the effective date of the termination. The notice must state the reasons that the county welfare agency believes that you're no longer eligible, and includes information on how to file an appeal and how long you have to file the appeal. Common reasons for termination are excess resources, excess income, not sending back a renewal form, or not providing all of the required information on the renewal form. Now, they often make mistakes, so don't assume that they're right by any means whatsoever. As I mentioned earlier, the CWBAs, before they terminate, they have to consider whether you're eligible for any other type of Medicaid program. And if it looks like you are, then the Medicaid agency must transition you to the eligible Medicaid program with no gap in coverage. You're not supposed to have to reapply for that other program. You have 60 days from the date of termination to file an appeal. But if you have good cause or good reason for not filing on time, they're supposed to be liberal with allowing late appeals. Pre-pandemic, for pre-unwinding, the time limit was only 20 days, but they have expanded it to 60 days for these cases right now. But it still can come up quickly, especially if you are having trouble with your mail, or the Medicaid doesn't have your correct address. Then if the appeal is filed on time, you have the right to receive continuing Medicaid benefits during the entire appeals process. And it's really important to get the continuing benefits, because the appeals process takes at least 3 to 4 months, and sometimes much longer. The appeal must be mailed or faxed, usually faxed to the fax number listed on the notice. It's 609-588-2435. I've done it so many times, I memorized it. It's all on the notice. There's a one-page form to fill out where you check off that you want continuing benefits and provide a brief reason why you disagree with the decision. It doesn't have to be detailed, but you have to get it in within that 60-day period, or have good cause for why it's late. Again, there's more things that are kind of self-explanatory here, but what happens is, once the appeal is received and processed by the state Medicaid department, the DMOS, what they call Fair Hearing Office, processes these appeals. Then it's transferred to the New Jersey Office of Administrative Law, or OAL, which is a judicial body of a group of state administrative law judges. The judge will then schedule a hearing. You'll get a notice of the hearing date. Right now, they're still doing phone hearings. In the past, pre-pandemic, all these hearings were in person. They're doing only phone hearings right now. That may change in the near future, but right now, only phone hearings. After the hearing, the ALJ issues a written decision that is a recommendation to the DMOS, or state Medicaid director. The DMOS director then has 45 days to review the decision and issue a new written decision that then becomes what's called the final agency decision. Okay, and then if the ALJ decision is unfavorable, you have 7 days, only 7 days from the date of the written decision, to submit what's called an exceptions letter, which explains why you disagree with the decision. The decision will have instructions on where to send that to, and how much time you have, but it's really only 7 days from the date of the judge's decision. Then the DMOS director has 45 days to review the case and issue her decision. She can accept, reject, or modify the decision, and that decision becomes what's called the final agency decision. And then if you are not satisfied with that decision, you have 45 days to file an appeal to the different court system, which is the New Jersey state court system. And the part of the system you apply to is called the Appellate Division of New Jersey Superior Court. Again, some directions on that, with the decisions. Since appellate division appeals are lengthy, it will be often necessary to file an emergent motion with the appellate division to stay the termination of benefits pending the appeal. And then if you lose before the appellate division, you can appeal to the New Jersey Supreme Court. Okay, so I'm sorry, I think I've run out of time here, but if there is any more time, I can take questions right now. As I said earlier, what I would like to do and be able to do is to take any questions, answer any questions that may be in the chat room right now, or any questions that you have after today. Hopefully, Jean can definitely give you my contact information. And you can either email me or call me, but I would be very happy to answer any and all questions concerning this. And certainly, CHLP, my organization, is here. We're here to help you, to help your clients, yourself, if this applies to you, to answer questions, to actually represent people. We represent a lot of people in Medicaid termination appeals, especially before the Office of Administrative Law, even occasionally appeals to the appellate division as well. So again, please take advantage of us. Please take advantage of me. I would definitely want to help you in any way I can and answer any and all questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ginsberg. This was an incredibly comprehensive presentation, and it was a lot to digest. So, we very, very much appreciate your time and putting this together and making yourself available. There were 6 questions in the chat, and I know that we're over time now by 2 minutes. I mean, maybe one quick question for those of you who could just stay on for a minute. For individuals who are non-English speaking or have limited English proficiency, or low literacy, how can this important information be made readily available, especially in different languages and formats?
Okay, well, we can do that. My organization, we can translate this into Spanish, this presentation. I know we were also talking about the possibility, prior to today's meeting, the possibility of having another session like this, the same session, but in Spanish. So that hopefully will happen in the relatively near future, although that's a bit not totally in my control, but hopefully that will happen. But also, my organization and myself personally, I do speak Spanish, and we have other people in my organization that speak Spanish. So if you speak Spanish, you can call me personally, and we can communicate in Spanish. As far as the whole system in general, everything, all information, applications, postcards, everything that is supposed to be sent by law really in your native language. So it's Spanish if it's Spanish, but if it's not Spanish, if it's another language, it's all really has to be sent in your native language to be legal and correct. I know all of the state materials, applications, postcards, flyers, they're definitely also available in Spanish as well as English, but that's really an important question. And obviously both myself and I think in general the state and the MCOs are dedicated to making sure that there are no issues or communication barriers due to people speaking non-English speakers.
Terrific. Thank you so much. And there are other programs and projects too that the New Jersey Department of Health, Human Services, and DMAS are collaborating on to do sort of community outreach and education on this topic, and in multiple languages. There are PSAs that are coming out and so on. So we'll definitely make sure that everyone who participated today is aware of that. I in the chat, I put it several times in the chat that this presentation and this PowerPoint, Mr. Ginsberg's slides will be available on the New Jersey njculturalcompetence.org website. I'm sorry, I typed that incorrectly the first few times I typed it. So it's njculturalcompetence.org. We will be sending out a follow-up email that has all of that information, the website, where you can, how you can access this presentation and the slides, and Mr. Ginsberg's contact information. So again, I thank you so much, Mr. Ginsberg. This was really very timely and very, very important for families and individuals to know about. Thank you all for participating and for your time and your giving us an extra 5 minutes. Please visit the website for more information and to learn about upcoming webinars in the future. We're planning to do this webinar in Spanish again. The network is, as well as some other important topics in the coming months. So stay tuned. That's njculturalcompetence.org. Thank you all again, and I look forward to seeing you. I don't know, Bob, did you have anything you wanted to add before we sign off?
No, just to echo my thanks to Mr. Ginsberg and also to Erica Kerber at the Community Health Law Project for connecting us up. Very timely, very important, and it will be very helpful to many people. Thank you again.
Can I just thank you, Bob and Jean, and of course, Lee. I'm Erica Kerber. I'm the Executive Director at the Community Health Law Project, and Lee is our Medicaid expert, as you can see, at the Law Project. We all reach out to him for questions about Medicaid. But I also wanted to emphasize, and Lee, thank you so much for this very, very thorough presentation. I wanted to emphasize that probably the most important thing you can take away from this is to make sure that you know, you or your clients read those notices very, very carefully, and that that individual, your client, whoever it is, complies with that notice and appeals that denial as quickly as possible, definitely within the time frame. Lee, I have one question though. In term, because I'm confused. I know things have changed because of COVID, but I think this is a very important question. In order to request continued benefits, do they have to request it within the 60 days, or is it a shorter time period for continued benefits?
Now, with these appeals that are part of the unwinding, the Medicaid appeals, if you appeal within 60 days, you're supposed to get the continuing benefits. It's confusing because in the past it was different, and for other types of Medicaid, like PDN or different types of Medicaid coverage appeals, those you still have to appeal within only 10 days to get continuing benefits. But my clear understanding is with these appeals, you know, it used to be a 20-day appeal deadline to get continuing benefits, but 20-day appeal deadline completely, and also 20 days to get continuing benefits. But currently it is, and it's supposed to be, you know, 60 days appeal deadline, but not 60 days also to get a continuing benefit. So if you appeal within 60 days, you get continuing benefits. But if you don't want to appeal within 60 days, then you may not be able to appeal at all. But it's critically important to get those continuing benefits, as I said. And yeah, also a big thing here is don't give up if you're denied. Even if you think they're probably right or definitely right, there is a good chance that, or at least a relatively good chance, they're wrong. This is very complicated. They definitely make mistakes, as I said before. So please reach out to us or anyone else that might be able to help, but definitely us. And we can at least go over the situation, make sure, even if you think they're right, to make sure that they are right. And to, if they're not, to tell you that and hopefully represent you, help you with the appeal, and possibly represent you at a hearing if necessary.
Thanks,
So,
Lee. So I guess you just have to really make sure that you read that notice very carefully. And if you need legal assistance, you could reach out to the Community Health Law Project.
Thank you so much, Erica. Really, really appreciate your support with this, as Bob mentioned. One thing I forgot to mention, in the follow-up email that you'll all be getting, there will be an evaluation. So please complete that evaluation if you can. It's real quick. Maybe, I think it's like 6 questions, and get that back to us. So stay tuned, and thanks again, everyone, and stay warm. Another snowstorm coming tomorrow.
thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.